प्रदा सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद भागवत प्रभो परिभातो वेदांते श्री कृष्ण परिवर्तित परमानंद पाठाय प्रेम विशक्षराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्य श्री कृष्ण नमस्तु मे मदेक बंधु मद संगीत मद गुरु मद महाधन मद निस्तारक मद भाग्य मद आनंद नमस्तु ते साधु साधुता दायिन अतनीचो अच्युताकर आनमुंशिकरा चिन्मां प्रेमणा उत्कंठयोस्पुरा तन्मेघं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सर्वरघुनाथामितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादां सगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमां विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणि प्रचार्ये निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्य the same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of the Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hiranyagarbhas, typing mistake, Hair instead of HIR, or the yogis, and as Bhagavan by the devotees. Hiranyagarbhas are those who practice Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga, the source of Ashtanga Yoga is Lord Brahma originally. Patanjali himself is presenting information that had come in a parampara from Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma's another name is Hiranyagarbha. So the path of Ashtanga Yoga, those who follow the path of Ashtanga Yoga are referred to as Hiranyagarbhas or the yogis, and as Bhagavan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagavan or the personality of Godhead is the last word of the absolute truth. Paramatma is the partial representation of the personality of Godhead, and impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead, as the sun rays are to the sun god. Less intelligent students of either of the above schools sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realization, but those who are perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. As explained in the first shloka of the first chapter of the Bhagavatam, the supreme truth is self-sufficient, cognizant, and free from the illusion of relativity. In the relative world, the knower is different from the known, but in the absolute truth, both the knower and the known are one and the same thing, in the sense that will be described in the next sentence. In the relative world, the knower is the living spirit or superior energy, whereas the known is inert matter or inferior energy. Therefore, there's a duality of inferior and superior energy, whereas in the absolute realm, both the knower and the known are of the same superior energy. There are three kinds of energies of the supreme energetic. There is no difference between the energy and energetic, but there is a difference of quality of energies. The absolute realm and the living entities are of the same superior energy, but the material world is inferior energy. The living being in contact with inferior energy is illusion, thinking he belongs to the inferior energy. Therefore, there is the sense of relativity in the material world. In the absolute, there is no such sense of difference between the knower and the known, and therefore everything there is absolute. In other words, we are qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord. We are conscious, the Supreme Lord is conscious, and therefore the Supreme Lord is referred to as Advaya Jnana. There are other reasons why the Supreme Lord is referred to as Advaya Jnana. Sorry. Advaya also means Asamurdhva, one who has no equal or superior, on the basis of the Bhalavaya Shruti. Also on the basis of Mahasamhita. So that absolute truth is unrivaled. Okay. Then, okay, right. Well, तच्छ्रद्धाना मुनयो ज्ञानवैराग्ययुक्तया पश्यन्त्यात्मनिशात्मानं भक्त्या श्रुतगृहीतया. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotion service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. Tachattatvam saparikaraya bhaktya eva prapyate ityaha. And that absolute truth, along with his retinue, his associates, his paraphernalia, can only be attained through devotional service unto him. So the first thing that we understand from this remark of Sridhar Swami is that he considers the absolute truth to be variegated. Otherwise, why would the absolute truth be described as having a parikara with his associated paraphernalia and so on, and can be attained only through bhakti? This is certainly not Shankaracharya's teaching at all. Shankaracharya's version is bhakti is just an advanced version of karma. So then there's no question of an advanced version of karma giving you liberation or full realization of the supreme absolute truth. So throughout, I'll go on pointing out like this, that the accusation that Sridhar Swami is a follower of Shankaracharya is simply wrong. So here, look at this expression, Jnana Vairagi Yuktaya, well equipped with knowledge and detachment. So in this context, Sridhar Swami says that this knowledge is indirect knowledge. Paroksha Jnana. Indirect knowledge means theoretical knowledge. Then direct realization, then there is a realization which is called direct knowledge. But this, what is referred to here is theoretical knowledge. So they see that supreme truth in the soul, in the living entity, the kshetrajya, the knower of the field. So what is that supreme truth? That supreme truth is the Paramatma, the supreme Lord, as the supreme soul, and so on. He's the supreme soul. He's not the living entity, Jivatma. Shrutagrihitaya. The devotional service that is referred to here is one that is well received through the hearing, study of the Vedanta and similar scriptures. This is mentioned in order to indicate that the kind of devotion service, bhakti, that is meant to be rendered should be one that is very firm. It should not be just something which is tender and very easily broken. The absolute truth is realized in full by the process of devotional service to the Lord Vasudeva, or the personality of Godhead, who is the full-fledged absolute truth. Brahman is his transcendental bodily effulgence, and Paramatma is his partial representation. As such, Brahman or Paramatma realization of the absolute truth is but a partial realization. There are 4 different types of human beings: the karmis, the jnanis, the yogis, and the devotees. The karmis are materialistic, whereas the other three are transcendental. The first class transcendentalists are the devotees who have realized the Supreme Person. The second class transcendentalists are those who have partially realized the plenary portion of the Absolute Person. And the third class transcendentalists are those who have barely realized the spiritual focus of the Absolute Person. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, the Supreme Person is realized by devotion service, which is backed by full knowledge and detachment from material association. We have already discussed the point that devotional service is followed by knowledge and detachment from material association. As Brahman and Paramatma realization are imperfect realizations of the absolute truth, so the means of realizing Brahman and Paramatma, that is the paths of Jnana and Yoga, are also imperfect means of realizing the absolute truth. This is straight Vishwanath Chakravarti topic. Devotion service, which is based on the foreground of full knowledge, combined with detachment from material association, and which is fixed by the oral reception of the Vedanta Shruti, is the only perfect method by which the seriously inquisitive student can realize the absolute truth. Devotional service is not therefore meant for the less intelligent class of transcendentalists. There are three classes of devotees, namely first, second, and third class. The third class devotees are the neophytes who have no knowledge and are not detached from material association, but who are simply attracted by the preliminary process of worshipping the deity in the temple are called material devotees. Material devotees are more attached to material benefit than transcendental profit. Therefore, one has to make definite progress from the position of material devotional service to the second class devotional position. In the second class position, the devotee can see four principles in the devotional line, namely the personality of God, that is devotees, the ignorant, and the envious. One has to raise himself, at least to the stage of a second class devotee, and thus become eligible to know the absolute truth. Now, this classification is straight from the 11th canto. A third class devotee, therefore, has to receive the instructions of devotional service from the authoritative sources of Bhagavata. The number one Bhagavata is the established personality of devotee, and the other Bhagavata is a message of Godhead. The third class devotee, therefore, has to go to the personality of devotee in order to learn the instructions of devotional service. Such a personality of devotee is not a professional man who earns his livelihood by the business of the Bhagavatam. Such a devotee must be a representative of Shukadeva Goswami, like Suta Goswami, and must preach the cult of devotional service for the all-around benefit of all people. A neophyte devotee has very little taste for hearing from the authorities. Such a neophyte devotee makes a show of hearing from the professional man to satisfy his senses. This sort of hearing and chanting has spoiled the whole thing. So one should be careful about the faulty process. The holy messages of Godhead, as inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Srimad Bhagavatam, are undoubtedly transcendental subject matters. But even though they are so, such transcendental matters are not to be received from the professional man who spoils them as a serpent spoils milk simply by the touch of his tongue. That is a paraphrase of a statement in statement quoted by Sanatana Goswami. Avaishnava Mukhodgyenam Bhutam Harikathamritam Shravanam Naiva Kartavyam Sapotshishtam Yathapayaha. A sincere devotee must therefore be prepared to hear the Vedic literature like the Upanishads, Vedanta, and other literatures left by the previous authorities or Goswamis for the benefit of his progress. I just started development of a course on Prasanatri on the principal Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Vedanta Sutra. This is important to study the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta Sutra, and so on with the proper understanding. Without hearing such literatures, one cannot make actual progress. And without hearing and following the instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless, and therefore a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service. There is a section in the Mahabharata called Moksha Dharma. It is a part of Bhishma Dev's instructions to Yudhishthir Maharaj. After the war, when Lord Krishna arranged for Yudhishthir to learn from Bhishma. At that time, Bhishma, he spoke about Raja Dharma, Apad Dharma, and Moksha Dharma. Moksha Dharma means duties that lead one towards liberation, liberating duties. And Srila Ramanujacharya, at the end of his Vedartha Sangraha, has said that this is Vyasadev's own commentary on the Upanishads. So Moksha Dharma, texts like this are very, very important. And without hearing and following the instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless and therefore a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service. Unless, therefore, devotional service is established on the principles of Shruti, Smriti, Purana, and Pancharatra authorities, the make show of devotional service should at once be rejected. An unauthorized devotee should never be recognized as a pure devotee. By assimilation of such messages from the Vedic literatures, one can see the all-pervading localized aspect of the personality of Godhead within his own self constantly. This is called Samadhi. This entire translation and purport has been quoted by Prabhupada within one purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is the only translation and purport which has been quoted in its entirety by Prabhupada elsewhere. Very, very important. 13. Atah kumbhir vijashreshtha varnashma vibhagashah swanushthittasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. So now, this is the conclusion of what he has been saying so far, that the result of dharma is actually bhakti. It is not artha, kama, sense enjoyment, and so on. Is to please the personality of Godhead means is to worship Lord Hari. Is to worship Lord Hari means is to engage in Navavidha Bhakti. Is to engage in Navavidha Bhakti means is to predominantly engage in Navavidha Bhakti and to constantly engage in Navavidha Bhakti. Because even for a person who's engaged in Varna Dharma, Ashrama Dharma, Sri Dharma, there are common duties, Samanya Dharma, common duties. And within those common duties, Navavidha Bhakti to Lord Hari comes there itself, along with certain sattvic duties. Duties to be fixed in the mode of goodness or to come to the mode of goodness. It's already there. So when it says that this is the highest perfection, it means that Navavidha Bhakti has to become predominant and to become exclusive. Highest perfection means the highest goal. Human society all over the world is divided into 4 castes and 4 orders of life. The 4 castes are the intelligent caste, the martial caste, the productive caste, and the laborer caste. These castes are classified in terms of one's work and qualification and not by birth. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in one of his many criticisms of the idea of determining a Brahmana by birth or by Gunakarma, he points out that in various countries, one has the army. And for the army, the country always selects people who are military personnel by Guna and Karma. They don't select people on the basis of birth. They actually have, because if you want to win a war, you need to have people who have the traits of a proper warrior and who engage in those activities which are required of a warrior. Then again, there are 4 orders of life, namely the student life, the householder's life, the retired life, and the devotional life. Notice this. Prabhupada is referred to sannyas ashrama as the devotional life. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has also noted that in Chaitanya Shikshamrita, it's indicated that there is always a phase before getting married, then there is married life, and then there is retired life. These are naturally ordained. Married life, family life, these have been presented in the monotheistic scriptures around the world. But in order to sustain a family, one needs to be trained for it. One needs to have sufficient education and so on. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, throughout the world, he indicates that throughout the world, there is an arrangement for education and training of the boys before they get married. So there is always something called the student life. Then there is married life or family life. And then when the body grows old and one understands the nature of the influence of time, then naturally there's a tendency to retire, to go down and so on. So there's also there. So these arrangements are impelled by nature herself. Similarly, amongst those who are theistic moralists, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has presented Chaitanya Shikshamrita for at least theistic moralists, not for people below that, not those who are atheistic moralists or immoral people. So, for his audience, and naturally, if you look at the monotheistic people around the world, at the last stage of life, they want to become fully absorbed in contemplation, meditation, prayers, and direct devotional spiritual services to the one supreme Godhead. So it is appropriate that human society all over the world is divided into 4 castes and 4 orders of life. In the best interest of human society, there must be such divisions of life. Otherwise, no social institution can grow in a healthy state. And in each and every one of the above-mentioned divisions of life, the aim must be to please the supreme authority of the personality of Godhead. End of emphasis. This institutional function of human society is known as a system of Varnashrama Dharma, which is quite natural for the civilized life. The Varnashrama institution is constructed to enable one to realize the absolute truth. It is not for artificial domination of one division over another. When the aim of life, that is, realization of the absolute truth, is missed by too much attachment for indriya preeti or sense gratification, as already discussed here and before, the institution of the Varnashrama Dharma, of the Varnashrama, is utilized by selfish men to pose an artificial predominance over the weaker section. In the Kali Yuga or in the age of quarrel, this artificial predominance is already current, but the saner section of the people know it well that the divisions of castes and orders of life are meant for smooth social intercourse and high-thinking self-realization and not for any other purpose. Herein, the statement of the Bhagavatam is that the highest aim of life or the highest perfection of the institution of the Varnashrama Dharma is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4.13. Just a minute. I have read out from, this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, wait, 1 minute, wait. Something is wrong. Why is my computer giving me trouble now? Something went wrong. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's preface to the first edition of Chaitanya Shikshamrita, and he has referred to Jiva Goswami's commentary on this series of verses, which I have translated and presented it in the form of an appendix. So I'll just read out an English translation of the Krama Sandarbha section, my own translation. I'll also read out the original. 1.2.13. Or best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. And that bhakti, which is so rarely attained, can also be attained from dharma based on one's conditioned nature when it is utilized to satisfy Sri Hari. It can also be attained, indicates that one can attain it directly by submissively associating with pure devotees of the Lord. But it can also be attained through the pathway of dharma. Therefore, satisfaction of Lord Hari is the highest benefit of that dharma. With this in mind, Suta Goswami speaks text 13. Swanushtitasya refers to dharma that has been faultlessly gained with great endeavor. When one faultlessly gains pious credits with great endeavor, then one should understand the highest goal is to attain worship of Lord Hari, devotional service unto the lotus feet of Lord Hari. It is implied that to engage in it, to attain petty results like Swarga is extremely inappropriate. Of course, this is an indirect method of coming to pure devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. The direct method is you just submit to more advanced devotees and directly make spiritual progress. That is a pathway of the Nirapekshas. This is okay. Not this. Okay. So this is the indirect pathway of the Swanishtas. So it takes more than one life. But ultimately one comes to the point of exclusive engagement in bhakti. But the same process can also be immediately attained when one simply accepts the training of devotional service as taught by perfect pure devotees. Here also you notice that one directly progresses. So everywhere it is, the goal is to come to the point of devotional service. This is text 8. The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. This is stated indirectly in text 8. By not satisfying Lord Vasudeva, if Varnashrama Dharma does not generate a taste for describing his pastimes, it will lead to useless labor, not its prescribed result. Because a taste for speaking about him is the first and the best result among all other results in the attainment of bhakti, there is only a mention of attaining it. This also refers to attaining a taste for other items of bhajana kriya. The word eva indicates that swarga and other results of varnashrama dharma and pravritti marga are perishable. The word he indicates that there is evidence from a Shruti text accompanied by a logical explanation. Just as whatever benefit one works hard to attain in this world is eventually depleted, so whatever life one earns for oneself in the next world by his piety will also eventually end. On the basis of Nirnite Kevalam in Amarakosha, Kevalam is understood to be an indeclinable. Here it indicates that the result of Varnashrama Dharma on the path of Nivritti Marga in the form of Jnana cannot be attained if Lord Vasudeva is not satisfied, and that result, even if one successfully attains it, is temporary. Even for this, the very same word he indicates evidence from the Shruti through texts such as only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature if they are not utilized for the devotion service of the Lord? My dear Lord, devotion service unto you is the only auspicious path. If one gives it up simply for speculative knowledge or the understanding that these living beings are spirit souls and the material world is false, he undergoes a great deal of trouble. He only gains troublesome and inauspicious activities. His endeavors are like beating a husk that is already devoid of rice. His labor becomes fruitless. O lotus-eyed one, those who think they are liberated in this life but do not render devotion service to you must be of impure intelligence. Although they accept severe austerities and penances and rise to the spiritual position to impersonal Brahman realization, they fall down again because they neglect to worship your lotus feet. From texts 1.2, 1.2.7 to 8, it can be understood that bhakti is independent of the practices of Jnana Vairagya in order to attain its result, whereas Jnana and Vairagya are dependent on bhakti in order to attain their respective results. Okay, what is or what are the questions?
Probably with the document we shared in the Telegram, we may have to read it again, some of the portions which you read just now, your translation and then explanation.
So what? You should say, share that document in the Telegram group. And I will say, yes, you please write a message reminding me to do that in the Telegram group. And then I will share it there.
Okay. But
like
what
this,
is the name of
I'll go on showing different things like this only. So anything that you will want, you'll have to say, I want this. Then I'll
But what is the name of the document? I don't know how I'll say.
Whatever it is, you simply say you showed something from Krama Sandarbha, post that.
Okay.
I'll go on showing different things and you may not know what those things are also. So at least just remember and put a note. Otherwise, I'll definitely forget it.
Only this Varnashrama Dharma is presently not implemented in ISKCON, right?
No, different things are there. We have Ashrama Dharma more or less in place. Ashrama Dharma, we have more or less in place. We have ashrama identities. No, men identify themselves according to ashramas. At least that much is there. Varnas, gradually it's becoming clear within ISKCON. Every now and then somebody will chastise me, saying, we can do all these stupid things, but you're a Brahmana, you should not do these things. So there's a basic idea that there is something called a Brahmana. So there's a clear understanding that just as there's ashrama gradation, that these ashramas are more renounced, more mature in understanding, are meant to be more devoted. Like that, there's also an understanding that those who are Brahmanika are expected to be more renounced, more mature in their understanding of Krishna consciousness, how to implement it in life, and how to be more Krishna conscious. So that much is becoming clear. It is becoming clear more and more. But and Stri Dharma, of course, is very well known, even though there's a lot of hesitation in applying it. I think the major difficulty is we haven't clearly understood that certain preliminary duties need to be executed before you talk about these specific duties. If that was to be more clear, then the role of Varna Dharmas and Stri Dharma, that would be much better appreciated. Also, if it has to be pointed out, what is the role of this? You have all these material duties, but then there's also the spiritual duty. So what is the whole point? We just continue like that. So the basic understanding of Guniyuta Bhakti, Pradhanibhuta Bhakti, Kevala Bhakti, that has to be understood. That you are meant to progress higher and higher and higher. Karma is accepted as infrastructure. Varna Dharma, Ashrama Dharma, Stri Dharma, Samanya Dharma, these are all just infrastructure. It is not by itself of any value. It is just infrastructure. It helps all the it helps sattvic practitioners of Krishna consciousness, rajasic practitioners of Krishna consciousness, tamasic practitioners of Krishna consciousness. It helps everyone to gradually become fixed and not fall down. And it helps them to move higher at a speed that they desire. Otherwise, you simply tell everyone to just surrender to Krishna's lotus feet and execute this alone. That is very difficult even for the non-grihasthas, what to speak of the grihasthas. So therefore, that arrangement is there.
What do you mean by Rajasic and Tamasic in Krishna consciousness?
There is something called Rajasic Bhakti Yoga. It's Tamasic Bhakti Yoga. You will see that in the third canto. We need to progress. When we execute Bhakti Yoga along with Rajasic activities, karma is a Rajasic activity. Jnana is Sattvic activity. Hari Bhakti is actually transcendental activity. And then Adharma is or forbidden activities are all tamasic. By forbidden, I mean forbidden for all. Activities which are forbidden for everyone. These are tamasic activities. Also called Anyabhilashita or Adharma. So when we execute devotion service and along with that, we also engage in forbidden activities, then that combination is naturally tamasic. We have to avoid these things.
Also, this sannyasa is not implemented, no? Like after grihastha life, after 50 years of their age, you should take sannyas.
One has to move forward. One has to move forward. Those who refuse to move forward will get opportunities in their next lives. But in that very life, if one wants to make progress, then he has to give up. He has to give up. It is not a sinful activity for, first of all, you should have a clear understanding of what is sinful activity. Sinful activity is an activity which is forbidden in the scriptures, and by engaging in which you will be punished by Yamaraj. That is a sinful activity. In general, in ISKCON, I think that there is a general idea that sense gratification is sinful activity. Yesterday, I was talking to, in some other discussion, I was discussing with some devotees, and there was a devotee who could not even understand the expression sinless sense gratification is bad. He could not understand what is sinless sense gratification. And I had to give an example of what is a sinless sense gratification. When you tell when a married man tells his wife, okay, you cook these items for me, that is sinless sense gratification. It is sense gratification, but it is sinless. So eventually we'll have to get out. First of all, you have to get out of sinful sense enjoyment. Then we have to get rid of sinless sense enjoyment also. You cannot force these things, no? If you force people to just accept sannyas, what is the use of sannyasis who are not in sattva guna? If they are not in sattva guna, then, if you have one problematic sannyasi, then thousands of families are affected by it. So we do not want that situation also. We want everything proper. That is why in Varnashrama Dharma you hear from the scriptures also. There have always been all kinds of There were some who were Naishtika brahmacharis who never took sannyas, because sannyas has its own duties also. There were Naishtika brahmacharis who never took sannyas. Also, unofficially, there were sannyasis throughout India. The Grihastha man himself, at a certain age, he understands the futility of material life and wants to surrender himself unto fully spiritual activities. So he naturally and unofficially accepts the vow of sannyas, but he does not put on saffron cloth. He may not put on saffron cloth, and so on. So that is also there. It has to come from the heart. Prabhupada said it has to come from the heart, otherwise it cannot be forcibly pushed. We have seen in ISKCON itself, by forcibly pushing, what happens? Sannyasis get disturbed, and they get disturbed, and all of their followers, admirers, everyone gets disturbed. My personal view is it is better to for such people who are very much agitated to get married, simply suffer in their old age. Shameful life is better than sinful life. Of course, everybody will throw stones at you. Whatever reputation you earned will be destroyed. But at least you are not sinful. But that is not a desirable arrangement, actually. It's not at all desirable. Because it's a fact that we need to make spiritual progress. We need to make spiritual progress. The entire arrangement has to be organized in a nivritti configuration, not a pravritti configuration. So that requires some careful thought. The individual practitioners have to think carefully, and those who are surrounding them and who are their well-wishers should also think carefully. Everything has its time. Anyway, one thing is, if somebody thinks that I'm suffering, at least that person should be told that, look, there is, your life does not end when this body dies. You can continue in your next life with all these experiences. Don't screw it up. Don't commit sinful activities. Don't commit forbidden activities. Okay, here's a question from Avinav Prabhu. How to implement these common duties in the Western world, especially Sri Dharma. Sri Dharma is not a common duty. Sri Dharma is a specific duty. Common duties are duties for all men and all women. 30 items mentioned in 7th canto, 11th chapter, text 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 30 duties. Out of those 30 duties, you have 21 sattvic duties and 9 transcendental duties. The 9 transcendental duties are the 9 items of bhakti. They are common. So, amongst those who carry out that, you can then, amongst the ladies who carry out those 30, those 30 are presented in another format in Bhagavad Gita. If you look at 13th chapter, text 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, Bhagavad Gita, you'll find a list of the items known as Jnana. And one of that, within those 20, there is one item of Bhakti also. So Bhakti itself indicates Manmanabho, Madbhakto, Madhyaji, Bhavanamaspi. So these are common for all. Another way to understand what are common duties is to examine Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter, text 1 to 3. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, actually Ramanujacharya, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they point out these are common to everyone in Vedic culture. So, of course, particular varnas and particular ashramas would be expected to carry out more of those duties. There are 26 duties. These are common to all, but the brahmanas will have to exhibit adherence to 12 specific duties more. Kshatriyas will have to carry out specific duties from that 26, some other items more. So first of all, these common duties, if they are implemented, because that creates the basic environment within which you can talk about specific duties. I think in ISKCON, the problem that we are creating is when we insist on people who are not interested in following the common duties, when we insist that they should follow specific duties, then it's revolting to them. Because it makes no sense, first of all. It makes no sense. Only a person who understands that I need to progress from Gunibhuta Bhakti to Pradhanibhuta Bhakti to Kevala Bhakti, and it clearly understands what Gunibhuta Bhakti is in today's world, what Pradhanibhuta Bhakti is in today's world, what Kevala Bhakti is in today's world. And he or she wants that kind of progress. Then that person will find some sense in the arrangement of common duties and specific duties. Otherwise, you won't even understand why the hell all these things are there. They simply torment us and torture us with all these irritating things. So they need to, first of all, understand them. And there are devotees who do understand. There are men and women who do understand. It may take a few years and sometimes a few decades of practice to cool down and understand. And among those who understand, they need to be taught these things. And then they accept it. Within ISKCON also, Sri Dharma is accepted by, there are ladies who are socially mature, spiritually mature, who understand Krishna consciousness. And within their own circles, they are implementing Sri Dharma. In India and outside India. In the West, in America also, in Europe also, in other places also. So these are common interest groups, which are very much in place. But they are naturally not in the limelight. That's all. Okay. Yes.
Prabhuji, for one who is educated, you said that better to lead a shameful life instead of sinful life.
No, but don't make that into a lifetime policy.
No, but I just want to clarify that is not there a way by which this agitation can be simply wiped out from?
Yes, yes. For that, we need to take to intense devotion service. We need to accept the formula given in Bhagavad Gita, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grhyate. We need to actually become renounced and detached and control the environment that we are in. Out of sight is out of mind. That is one part. Another part is to accept routine practices. Routine practices means activities which we go on repeating on particular basis. If you examine Vedic culture itself, and you will find it reflected at the status of karma, jnana, yoga, and bhakti. You will find certain daily duties, certain non-daily periodical duties. You will find certain duties for particular occasions and so on. So there are things to do every day. There are things to do every fortnight. There are things to do every month. There are things to do every year. There are like that. So that life of routine is very, very, very important. If we disturb that life of routine, then it becomes extremely difficult to make spiritual progress. Very, very difficult to make spiritual progress. That is one side. By ignoring abhyasa, we're making it very difficult. And by ignoring vairagya, that is also very difficult. In today's world, you see, the very concept of routine is largely absent amongst the mass. Amongst the class, it is there. You look at the achievers, they're all having routine schedules. And they're also highly self-controlled, self-disciplined. But the mass is not that. And you're not creating a practical environment which encourages that. Even in today's world, they'll tell you that if you want to become an IAS officer, you need to go through a life of discipline in order to achieve that. But They don't create an environment which makes it possible for the maximum number of people who want such a life of self-discipline to achieve it. That is the whole problem. It is like a school. Imagine a school. Imagine a classroom without teacher or a substitute teacher. An LKG classroom or a kindergarten classroom of children without a teacher or a substitute teacher. It's simply chaos. So that is what is happening in today's world. So as a result, everybody is affected. They're finding it very, very difficult. So therefore, there has to be the right arrangement for these things. And that is Varnashrama Dharma. Varnashrama Dharma is like a school. Like in a school, there is an arrangement to progress from first standard, second standard, third standard, fourth standard, all the way up to 12th standard, and then you graduate out. If Varnashrama Dharma is not there, then it is like telling, imagine there is a school which is aimed at getting people to pass out of 12th standard, but there is no 11th standard, 10th standard, 9th standard, 8th standard, 7th standard, 6th standard, 5th standard, 4th standard, 3rd standard, 2nd standard, 1st standard. All the kids are together, one gigantic hall. And all of them are supposed to write the 12th standard exam and pass it. It's a joke. Because you cannot have a boy or girl who's fit for, say, 3rd standard to even deal with 12th standard exam. So you need to systematically move up. So the entire Varnashrama scheme is that. First, you come to the platform of karma. Karma pradhana karma jnana bhakti. Then jnana pradhana karma jnana bhakti. Bhakti pradhana karma jnana bhakti. Over the years and decades. Then you give up karma, family life. Then you're executing only the activities of a sannyasi, whether officially or unofficially, that's what you're doing, both men and women. And then you come to the point where you execute only Navavidha Bhakti. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's method. You see how he presents Namashraya Bhakti. You start with one round, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you increase in multiples of 4 up to 64. Then you increase in multiples of 64 up to 192. Then you chant constantly. Then you come to the point of Nishtha. Then you make further spiritual progress. So it all naturally fits in with Varnashrama Dharma. If you don't follow Varnashrama Dharma, it's very difficult to make progress in this manner, in a systematic manner. Then you'll have to create your own setup and protect yourself from other chaotic devotees also. And protect yourself from all these intrusions of this uncivilized world. Because this uncivilized world has no sense of what is the highest perfection of life. So they'll simply create a big demoniac mess. Make it most difficult to make spiritual progress. We need to think how to execute these things. It will be useful if proper arrangements are made. Social arrangements are made.
So this routine practice, like daily duties and occasional duties were mentioned.
Yes, the daily duties, the routine duties. You have to ask me the question that you want to ask.
So what are they? I just want.
We have within Krishna consciousness, we have our own set of, we have daily duties in the form of a morning program, evening program, and so on. The more we take advantage of it, the better it is for our spiritual consciousness. We have routines. Every Ekadashi we fast. Every year we have Janmashtami, Gaura Purnima, Radhashtami, Narasimha Chaturdashi. Routines are very important. Routines discipline the mind. To control the mind, we need to engage in Abhyasa and Vairagya. Both are required. Only Abhyasa will not work. Vairagya is also required. Vairagya means that you externally move things away that are distracting. that can distract. All of this requires help, if not help, at least support, if not support, at least guidance, if not guidance, at least encouragement, at least absence of discouragement.
So, one more question. In the 12th sloka, the purport, it is written at the end of the paragraph. By simulating such messages from the Vedic literatures, one can see the all-pervading localized aspect of the personality of Godhead within his own self.
Constantly.
That means
he sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his own Jiva. He is a Jivatma. He sees him inside himself. What is your problem with that?
So, any reference is there that who has seen?
Any reference is there to who has seen means what? You want a list of you want a list of personalities within ISKCON who are self-realized? Nobody will make that list.
No, from the scriptures.
Yeah, there are so many persons. In Bhagavatam itself, if you see, you come across several personalities. In the first canto, you come across Narada Muni. You come across the Pandavas, including Draupadi Devi, Subhadra Devi, Kunti Devi, Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadev Goswami, third canto, Kardama Muni, Devahuti Devi, fourth canto, Dhruva Maharaj. In that way, if you examine every canto, you will find. If we follow, it's like a blind person. If he follows the treatment properly, he will begin to see. You don't need a certificate from third party to establish that. You yourself receive your eyesight. That's all. You don't require social validation. Somebody else tells you, you're fine, you're good, you're doing great. You don't need all these things. You yourself understand that it's fine. You yourself do it. Just like Prabhupada often gives the example of eating. Nobody has to give you a certificate to say that the food was very satisfactory to you. You yourself have to give that certificate. So that's what it is for all of us.
That means, Prabhu, can we also see the Supreme Personal Godhead within ourselves?
Yeah, Vidyate Hridaya Granthis, Chityante Sarva Samshaya, Shiyante Chasya Karmani. Comes. It will come now. The sequence of spiritual progress will come now. That is the sequence in Bhakti Yoga. That is the source of Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha. That statement from Rupa Goswami is based on a sequence that will come now.
Okay.
Okay. 14. Tasmadekena manasa Bhagavan Satvatam Pati Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Dhyaya Pujasya Nityada. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Yasmacha bhakti hino dharma kevalam shrama eva tasmad bhakti pradhana eva dharma anushtheya ityaha. Because dharma which is devoid of devotion service unto Lord Krishna is nothing but useless labor. One should only carry out dharma which is predominated by Vishnu Bhakti. Tasmad. One pointed attention. If realization of the absolute truth is the ultimate aim of life, it must be carried out by all means. In any one of the above mentioned castes and orders of life, the four processes, namely glorifying, hearing, remembering, and worshipping, are general occupations. Without these principles of life, no one can exist. Activities of the living being involve engagements in these four different principles of life. especially in modern society. All activities are more or less dependent on hearing and glorifying. I think in recorded history, glorification has never been as rampant amongst the masses as now. Advertisement is all pervading. To such an extent, we have all sold ourselves to all these companies which involve abundant advertisement. In the social media industry, there's a saying, if you're not buying a product and you use social media, you should understand that you are the product. Because they know, Google knows us much better than our own spouses, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, and children. They keep track of us. So advertisement is all pervading. Any man from any social status becomes a well-known man in human society within a very short time if he simply glorified truly or falsely in the daily newspapers. And through social media, things have become so upside down. No? So some chapati maker who speaks Korean or something like that, becomes a big, viral sensation. This is something. Some cooked some Indian food, and that's all. For no reason. Just some 1 minute TikTok video and bang, that's it. That becomes, it gets some, 5 million views. Just like that. Complete outrageous craziness. First of all, newspapers themselves are crazy. Why everybody has to know about everything happening in the universe? Life was going on. They thought, but they think that's very primitive and barbaric. Everyone should know. It's the information age. It's not, it is hyper information age. People are bombarded with so much information, people cannot process that information. You can't be a normal person in today's world with all this information intoxication. Crazy. Sometimes political leaders of a particular party are also advertised by newspaper propaganda, and by such a method of glorification, an insignificant man becomes an important man within no time. But such propaganda by false glorification of an unqualified person cannot bring about any good, either for the particular man or for the society. There may be some temporary reactions to such propaganda, but there are no permanent effects. It's a matter of great shock that for me, that I understood over the years that many of the heroes in society over the last, 100 years or so, they've had very abominable lives, very morally repugnant, abominable lives, highly irresponsible, abusive, no sense of selfless affection or no sentiments to do good to others even. And these people, just because they have some talent, they're glorified. Therefore, such activities are a waste of time. The actual object of glorification is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created everything manifested before us. We have broadly discussed this fact in our comments on the Janmadhyasya Shloka at the beginning of the Bhagavatam. The tendency to glorify others or hear others must be turned to the real object of glorification, the Supreme Being, and that will bring happiness. 15. Yeah.
Guruji, in Vedic times, were there a section of people or Brahmanas who are supposed to know everything going around in the world, or this concept only was not of newspaper and getting to know the things what's happening around? Is it needed in the first place? And if needed, was there a section?
First of all, the entire society was conceived as a school. Just as if you're in a school, should the students know everything that's happening in a city? Why they invent to know everything happening in a city? You're in a school to progress. That's all. If you allow the teachers, students, or non-teaching staff to become absorbed with all the happenings in that city, you cannot have a functioning school. That doesn't mean nobody knows, because to protect that school and to protect the operations of the school, there are persons who will require to know all these things. So similarly, in Vedic culture, there were the Kshatriyas who knew all these things. The Brahmanas are the teachers, and those lower than the Brahmanas are the students. So things were organized like that. Generally, the Brahmanas, being more intelligent and more self-controlled, would be able to process the information much better. Therefore, the Kshatriyas were also functioning under the counsel and guidance of the Brahmanas. The Kshatriyas had this information, but they didn't know how to process it and to make sense of it. Even in today's world, I know someone who was working for, and I think he's still working for, a company in Gujarat. He only spends, I think, 6 hours per week on the spot. He keeps track. He's a hands-off manager. He's being paid a hefty amount. We are talking of lakhs per month. His only duty is to guide them by giving them not more than 6 hours per week. And he's paid a lot more than what those people sitting there and working very hard are paid. I asked him once, he's a practicing devotee. He's a devotee and known to me. And once I asked him, what exactly do you do? So he said that I asked him various questions. I asked him to create certain reports. So they do market analysis. They give me reports about many different things that I asked them for. So they gather all this information and present it to me in a particular format that I want them to present it. And then based on that, I chastise them. My basic duty is to chastise them. I chastise them based on the reports that they themselves give me. My duty is simply that. I simply get on their case. And for that, I am being paid 1.5 lakhs per month, which itself actually is peanuts for me. So even in today's world, in a third world country like India, even now, people who process information are given more value than those who have information, who have more value than those who do not have the information. We are talking of relevant information, information relevant to one's particular personal and communal interests. The communal, I don't mean racial community. I refer to one's interest-based community. Like if you're a part of a company, then you want to make the company successful. That is your community. Or if you're a part of a welfare group, like the Red Cross or the Blue Cross, then you're part of that, and that is your community, and you want that to succeed. So you have to gather sufficient relevant information, but still you require somebody else who is much more self-controlled, who's not disoriented by all this information explosion happening, and who can specify, no, look at this, look at this, look at this. Who can join the dots, as they say, correctly. So the Brahmanas, they knew what was required. Therefore, the Kshatriyas would take guidance from them because they are hands-off guides, actually. They're not even managers, hands-off guides. And the Kshatriyas were the hands-on managers. These Brahmanas were generally ministers. But then the Shrotriya Brahmanas are those who are entirely focused on how to materially or spiritually elevate themselves for the next life. They're completely absorbed in the scriptures. They would not even become ministers. In fact, generally, they would not even enter the palace or a place like that. It's considered too materialistic for them. Sannyasis were generally like that. So everything was kept under control. Okay, let's move on. 15. Yad anudhyasana yukta karma granthi nibandhanam Chindanti Kovidastasyan Kona Kuriyat Kathar Ratim, with sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of God. And therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Here, the sword itself has been compared to remembrance of the Supreme Lord. Anudhya Asina, with the sword of remembrance of the Supreme Personality of God, they cut through karma, the knots of karma. Bhakti Rahito Dharma. Bhakti Rahito Dharma Kevalam Shrama Eveti Prapanchitam. It has been demonstrated, it has been established that dharma that is devoid of Hari Bhakti is simply waste of time. Idanantu Bhaktir Mukti Phalatvam Prapanchayati. Now it is pointed out that devotional service unto Lord Hari results in liberation. It has to be stated because generally people do not understand that. Generally they think that devotional service unto the Lord is a special variety of fruitive activities. Because people in general understand that if you want to attain something, you have to satisfy Lord Vishnu. And those who know about the hierarchy of the worshipable deities, they know that Lord Vishnu is supreme, but they still don't understand. You need to get out of material existence and enter into a life of liberation. Ultimately, liberation is eternal service unto the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Tadamala bhajanam, moksham Vishnu angri labham. Moksha is nothing but attainment of eternal service unto the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. So that is now pointed out here. Khangas. So those who have discrimination, those who are intelligent, they accept this sword of constant remembrance of Lord Hari. And they cut through the knot. That knot is nothing but ahankara, false ego. False ego ties the spirit soul to matter. The contact of the spirit spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitive work. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This is because all the activities of the Supreme Lord, his Leela, are transcendental to the modes of the material energy. They are all attractive spiritual activities, and therefore constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately severs the knot of material bondage. Liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct of devotional service. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. Then liberation is made possible. So we may initially start with karma, jnana, bhakti, in which karma is predominant. In practical language, it means the person who accepts a life, a sinless life of material duties, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, and cultivation of the routine activities of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And over time, bhakti is meant to be predominant, which means he has to increase the amount of time he gives for the items of sadhana bhakti. Preaching is also sadhana bhakti. Practice is also sadhana bhakti. So that has to become predominant. That is one way. Another way is karma pradhani. One accepts a combination of karma, jnana, bhakti with karma being predominant. And over the years or the decades, comes to a point where he cultivates spiritual knowledge more, gives more and more time to that. So now jnana is predominant. And then over years or over decades, then he makes bhakti predominant. The activities of sadhana bhakti predominant. Then he becomes much more mature. Then he gives up family life itself. And then he becomes fully absorbed in the 9 types of devotional service itself. So in that way, he comes to Kevala Bhakti. Then liberation is made possible. Even the reactionary work of the fruitive workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. Karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga, provided you go through the same pathway, and bhakti becomes predominant. Similarly, empirical knowledge overcoated with devotional service is called jnana yoga. But pure bhakti yoga is independent of such karma and jnana because it alone can not only endow one with liberation from conditional life, but also award one the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is only meant for those who want to engage in karma or jnana. If somebody right from day one, for whatever reason, has developed faith that all I need to execute is the activities of devotional service alone, he should not accept the items of karma or jnana in order to make spiritual progress. He should just progress from up. That's all. Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of God by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshipping him always without cessation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out ways for all classes of men in terms of the different castes and orders of life, in pursuance of the teachings of Sri Bhagavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures. 16. Shusho Shraddhathanasya Vasudeva Katharuchi Syan Mahatsevaya Viprah Punyatirthan Nishevana. Or by spawn sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice. Great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Objection. It is true that attachment to Harikatha uproots one's karmic reactions. Still, we don't get that taste. What should we do? In answer to that objection, now a series of verses come. By serving those who are Punya Tirtha. Look at this. Punya Tirtha Nishevana. Punya Tirtha refers to those who are Nishpapa, those who are cleansed of all vice. So by that, one attains faith in Bhagavata Dharma, and then one develops a desire to hear the pure devotion, the topics of pure devotion service as taught in Srimad Bhagavatam. Then one attains taste. Okay?
Prabhu, can you just repeat this sequence once? Ending with
This is the
like
same.
start.
Okay, this is the 14 items. Right. Oh, wait, 1 minute. The 14 stages. Now Chakravarti Thakur brings it up. Why does it take so much time? I'm just trying to open a file. First of all, one attains Satam Kripa or Sadhu Kripa, mercy of the pure Vaishnava saints. And then one serves those great souls. And from them one develops Shraddha, faith and enthusiasm. What I put out in red is the list given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The corresponding items from Rupa Goswami are put in purple here. Then Gurupada Ashraya. One takes shelter at the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master, same as Sadhu Sangha. Then one develops a hankering to engage in the various activities of Bhajana Kriya. Then one engages in the activities of Bhajana Kriya. And then unwanted activities, desires, and attitudes go away. Then one becomes steady. Steady means one engages in such devotional service uninterruptedly. Then one develops a taste for such activities of Bhajana Kriya. Then one becomes attached to the object of devotional service, the personality of Godhead. Then one attains ecstatic love of Godhead. This is the time from which one begins to directly experience the Supreme Lord. Then one develops pure love of Godhead. And then one directly meets the Supreme Lord. And then one continuously experiences the sweetness of Lord Hari. If you want this document, remind me in the group.
Yes, Prabhu.
The conditioned life of a living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. There are men called Devas, or godly living beings, and there are men called Asuras, or demons, who are against the authority of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter, a vivid description of the Asuras is given, in which it is said that the Asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance, life after life, and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. These Asuras are gradually rectified to God consciousness by the mercy of the Lord's liberated servitors in different countries according to the supreme will. Such devotees of the Lord are very confidential associates of the Lord. And when they come to save human society from the dangers of godlessness, they are known as empowered incarnations of the Lord, as sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord. But none of them falsely claims that he is God himself. This is a blasphemy declared by the Asuras, and the demoniac followers of such Asuras also accept pretenders as God or as incarnation. In the revealed scriptures, there is definite information of the incarnation of God. No one should be accepted as God or an incarnation of God unless he is confirmed by the revealed scriptures. The servants of God are to be respected as God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Such servants of God are called Mahatmas or Tirthas, and they preach according to particular time and place. The servants of God urge people to become devotees of the Lord. They never tolerate being called God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God himself according to the indication of the revealed scriptures, but he played the part of a devotee. People who knew him to be God addressed him as God, but he used to block his ears with his hands and chant the name of Lord Vishnu. He strongly protested against being called God, although undoubtedly he was God himself. The Lord behaves so to warn us against unscrupulous men who take pleasure in being addressed as God. The servants of God come to propagate God consciousness, and intelligent people should cooperate with them in every respect. To cooperate with them means it's just like patients are told to cooperate with doctors. So when you have a competent, compassionate doctor, when it is said that the patient should cooperate with such a doctor, it basically means the patient should just shut up and do what the doctor says. By serving the servant of God, one can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. The Lord is more pleased when he sees that his servants are properly respected, because such servants risk everything for the service of the Lord, and so are very dear to the Lord. The Lord declares in the Bhagavad Gita 18.69 that no one is dearer to him than one who risks everything to preach his glory. By serving the servants of the Lord, one gradually gets the quality of such servants, and thus one becomes qualified to hear the glories of God. The eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee eligible for entering the kingdom of God. There is another interesting presentation, which I'll simply point it out quickly before we close up. Where is it? When people become afraid of their destination after death, they take to pious activities. Then they associate with the devotees of the Lord. By the mercy and association of the devotees, they develop faith in the topics of the Supreme Lord. From faith, they obtain devotion service to the Lord. From devotion service, renunciation automatically follows. And from renunciation, auspicious ecstatic spiritual knowledge manifests. The devotion creeper sprouts from the seed of good association in the field of a heart filled with piety. Being regularly watered with faith and protected by renunciation, it climbs the tree of knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Then, being decorated with flowers of love, it produces the fruits of ecstatic bliss. Another presentation. Okay. Vancha kalpadurubhyascha kripasinubhyo vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.